Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manoa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 12 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from my time in IWA Mid South from 1997 to 2009. And today I'm joined by a former IWA Mid South Heavyweight champion, the 2005 King of the Death Matches, and a one-night only member of the Fannin Family. He's Mr. Insanity, Toby Klein. How you doing today, Toby?
Hey, you did your homework. I forgot some of those stats. I didn't know I was a one-time member of the Fannin Family.
Yes, one night the show with Necro and Samoa Joe at the ECW Arena. It was you, Pondo, and JC Bailey, managed by me, going against I think it was Ian Axel and Nate Webb. So,
and I bled very badly in that match.
I don't have really any memory of that match. I just know that that was the only time I ever managed you and the only time I ever managed Pondo.
I bled badly because I had a match for CZW later in the night, and I had to wrap my head in gauze, and it came back open. It was me and Necro versus the Hate Club later in the night. And as soon as the match started, my head started flowing again. I remember Axel gave me a chair shot in that match that hard-weighed me. And I bled very badly through that match and through the next match later in the evening for CZW.
Well, I'm sure the fans were happy to see all the blood, especially at a show that was IWA CZW doubleheader.
Boy, those were the days.
Yeah, it brings back the memories. Usually I start off the podcast by letting the guests, talk about how they became a wrestling fan and, what their origin story was for getting into the business. So if you have any stories to share of like what it was that drew you to wrestling, how you got to become a fan, and how you decided that, it was something that you wanted to pursue as a career.
Well, showing my age a little bit. When I was a young kid, Hulk Hogan won the title from the Iron Sheik, and that was right about the time I became interested in wrestling. And there was it was where the Cleveland Cavaliers used to play. I live in North Central Ohio. So the big stadium near where we lived was the Ridgefield Coliseum. Lots of old Survivor Series took place there. And
wasn't the first one there?
Yeah. And the main event of the very first show I ever attended in person was Hulk Hogan defending the title against Jesse the Body Ventura. So watching that match live, I was hooked. I was a Hulkamaniac, and that's all I did was watch wrestling, collecting the action wrestling figures and going to matches. And I said about that early age, I said, I'm going to do that when I grow up. Whenever people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grow up, I said, I'm going to be a wrestler like Hulk Hogan.
Nice. Now, were those the old LJN, the big rubber?
Oh, yeah.
The rubber ones? Did you see that they've started coming out with they're reissuing those again? I guess maybe only at Target, I think Nick Manoa told me. I went into a Target to look for the Dusty Rhodes, and the Target I had went into didn't have anything. but yeah, I had all the LJ. Well, I didn't have all of them. I had quite a few of the LJNs. I had quite a few of the AWA Remco figures of the same time period.
Oh yeah, I did too.
I actually like those better than
The Road
the W.
Warriors, Nick Bockwinkel, Rick Martel. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, yep, yeah. The Freebirds. I had the Freebirds 3-pack.
The Road Warriors set was the best one, I thought.
Yeah, those were pretty good. I like. I actually, my favorite was the Stan Hansen Jerry Blackwell 2-pack, because Hansen had like the cowboy hat and the black chaps and everything, and
Yeah, you're right.
you know I really liked that one. So yeah, that was. It's sad when you see like the very rare times that one of those pop up on like eBay still in the package, how much those things go for, and you're like, man, I could have. I I was sitting on a gold mine back then and didn't even realize it. You know.
I have a couple of unopened packs from the years. I think I have a Sid Vader pack, combo pack from probably, I don't know, 97 or so. It's unopened. I still have that. And I have a couple of Hulk Hogan dolls from over the years that are unopened still. But yeah, I've the bad thing about drug addiction. When I was a horrible, horrible drug addict, I had so much wrestling memorabilia and I sold it all. I sold my boots, and then I wrestled barefoot for 15 years. And then I sold my action figures and my trading cards and everything, wrestling belts, everything that had value that wrestling fans would buy, trophies. Yeah, I sold everything. I regret that.
Well, I not through addiction, but through all the money lost on IWA, when I got out, and right after I finally got out, I got married. Um, you know, my wife had has a chronic leukemia, actually the same kind of leukemia that Roman Reigns has and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So she was not able to work because of the effects that it has on her. So like I'm one income to support us in Chicago. Uh, at the time, I was working 4 jobs. Uh, I was working security for the Cubs. I was selling 50-50 raffle tickets for the Chicago Bulls. I was doing third party, private security through a security company. And, I was doing Instacart grocery delivery, trying to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. And I had to start selling off my sports collection stuff just to make ends meet. So I had like a lot of Chicago Bear helmets that had a ton of players on it that I had to sell. I had like a Super Bowl 20 program that was signed by most of the team except for Walter Payton that I had to sell off. And then I had a Four Horsemen ring jacket that I had gotten from an NWA convention and had like Flair, Ole, Arn, Tully, Barry, Luger, um, like pretty much anybody that was a horseman that I could get. I had that and had to sell that off. And I wish I still had that Four Horseman jacket. It kills me. It kills me that I had to get rid of that. But you got to do what you got to do to survive. So
I had a WWF magazine. The cover it was right before WrestleMania 13. The cover was Brett and Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels and Sid.
ooh, wow.
And then they either pulled the magazine or quickly created a new one because Shawn didn't wrestle on that one. It ended up being Undertaker in a spot against Sid. So I had that magazine. I thought that was pretty cool. It was autographed by Brett.
I still have the program from the first house show I ever went to. First wrestling show was right after WrestleMania 3. They had come to the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, and main event was Steamboat versus Savage in a cage.
Man,
And got to see that match. And Got the program. Steamboat holding up the Intercontinental title that he'd won at WrestleMania
Who
was on the
bled? Who
cover of
bled
it.
in the cage? Both of them? Who bled? Do you remember?
I was, geez, I was 9 years old at the time.
I'd have
I,
been curious to see who bled in that. Probably
I
both of them.
don't know if they bled. To tell you the truth, I can't remember if either one of them bled.
Cage match. You figured they probably
Cage
both.
match, you would think, but I don't recall it. But I do know that years later, I was able to get Steamboat to autograph that, and I still have that somewhere in one of my totes stored away. I still have. I kept that one. Was one of the ones I didn't get rid of. So, uh, but yeah, it's a shame when you lose stuff like that that you treasured, and stuff like that you can't get that back. It's a shame, but it it happens. All you can do is try to better yourself and better your situation, and not have to go through times like that again.
So true.
So you wanted to get into wrestling at a very young age. Um, when was it something that you like became tangible, and you saw that it was something that you could actually do? Like who did you end up training with? How old were you when you started?
I went off to grew up in Shelby, Ohio, mid north central Ohio, right outside of a town called Mansfield, Ohio. But went off to the University of Toledo. Was only at college for a couple of weeks. I was in their film school program. I wanted to also be a low budget horror movie director. That was another career goal of mine. How appropriate the two of them go hand in hand sometimes, wrestling and low
Right.
budget
Yeah.
movies, which years later, would get my break in the movie business because of wrestling. But so I went off to college. I was only there for weeks. I wasn't there long at all. I come home one weekend and actually had a goal to walk on to the Toledo football team, University of Toledo Rockets. So I had attended some of the football meetings and toured their weight room and was thinking of pursuing football because I had loved it in high school. But come home one weekend and walking through my hometown of Shelby, there was a ring being put up. I thought it was a boxing ring at first when I peeked in the window. It was right downtown Shelby where I lived. And this would have been September or October of 1996. And I walked in there. I was 18 years old. And I asked them, what are you guys doing? And they said, oh, we're putting our wrestling ring up. We have a wrestling training center, American States Wrestling Alliance Training Center. And I said, do you do tryouts? And they said, yeah, tryouts are free. So I did a tryout and quit college and moved back home and took off with it. And my trainer was named Kid Collins, and he had done some enhancement talent stuff with WWF in the mid '80s to late '80s. Mike Moffat is his real name, but yeah, he had done under the name Mike Collins with WWF some enhancement talent stuff, and he was to this day he's one of the most knowledgeable guys in the wrestling business I've ever been in the ring with. He taught me a lot. And there were other guys there at the school that would come in and they were all enhancement talent for WWF. There was a guy called the Dapper Destroyer, Bodacious. He runs arm armbar, hammerlock wrestling, armbar wrestling. He runs some kind of wrestling promotion in Dayton still to this day. And then there
Okay.
was a guy named Handsome Frank Stiletto. And in the mid 90s, he was heavily used enhancement talent for WWF. He always wrestled for him. And actually, Frank Stiletto got me a gig as an enhancement talent in March of 1998, Syracuse, New York. He said, hey, I need somebody to go with me to WWF. And so I went and got a payday out of it. And
Cool.
was supposed to wrestle Luna Vachon on Raw. Tony Gurria walked up to me and said, "Hey, we need a guy to job to Luna." And he said, "Goldust will lay you out, and then Luna will put the splash on you, and that'll be all it is." But I don't know if he remembers, but there's a guy named Matt Knowles. At the time, I think he's in New York, but at the time, he was referee and wrestling. I think he did some ECW stuff, but he was a little bit shorter than I was, and for whatever reason, they thought it made more sense for him to do it, I guess. So
Okay.
last second, they made the switch. They put him on Raw, and I didn't do anything, but I got a payday out of it. So
at least you got a payday out of it. That's
yeah,
cool.
that was the night that X-Pac. I remember that was the night X-Pac came back. Sean Waltman had been in WCW, and he had came back to WWF that night, and everybody was excited to have him back on the show.
Okay, so that's at least a memorable night, something big that happened. Before we get too far off that story, since you brought up that you were going to be film school for the horror movies, a fan, Alex Mahoney, had actually, I put out, you might have saw where I put on social media, if some fans had some questions.
I didn't read any of them. I wanted to be surprised. I seen it, but I didn't read the questions.
Okay, so Alex Mahoney reached out, and he wanted you to know that he really enjoyed watching your matches, and hopes that you're doing well. But his question was, what are your top 3 fucked up horror movies?
Then all the race people lit their candles instead of.
For old school, just because it started the whole thing for found footage films, probably Cannibal Holocaust. The actors, it was an Italian horror film, and the actors were actually brought into a courtroom because the director was being legal action was taken against him because they thought somebody had died during the making of the movie. So he had to bring the actors into a courtroom to prove everybody was still alive.
Wow.
So that one was pretty good. Cannibal Holocaust, another cannibal movie called Make Them Die Slowly. The director is Umberto Lenzi. That one just, man, I don't know. That one has like a dirty feeling to it. You watch that and one of those movies where they say you got to take a shower afterwards. That's probably one of them.
Okay.
Just the subject matter and just how it doesn't seem like it's legal to watch it. So Make Them Die Slowly, Cannibal Holocaust, and probably Demons, Lamberto Bava. All 3 Italian movies, actually. Yeah, the Italians made some crazy movies in the late '70s and early '80s. That's probably my favorite movie is the Italian horror movie from late '70s into early '80s. Yeah, the movie Demons was about people that get trapped in a theater and demons attack them while they're in the theater. But it's just nonstop gore, practical special effects before CGI ruined it.
Okay. Well, that was interesting. See, I did not know that your history of wanting to make movies. So that's one of the good things about having the fan questions. Sometimes the fans know more and can get some interesting things there.
And then I ended up actually being able to be a part of Cinema Wasteland in Strongsville, Ohio. And it's a horror movie convention where they would bring in some of these actors from the movies that I loved watching growing up. And 42nd Street Pete was the host of a segment on the show called Hardcore Wrestling Hour. And he would show these death matches to a theater room full of people that had come to the horror movie convention, but it was just a filler. They needed something for a couple hours in the theater room until they get the directors awake to come in and show their movies. So it was an early morning time slot on Saturday mornings. And I just happened to be at Cinema Wasteland one weekend. And I went in and watched it. And one of my matches was playing on the theater screen. So I stood up and bowed at the end of it. And he's seen me. And so we talked. And he ended up having it become Mr. Insanity's Hardcore wrestling hour, and I would be doing live commentary on these hardcore death matches while people wandered in and out of the theater room. And sometimes we'd have a couple hundred people in there. It was pretty rowdy and pretty fun. So
Wow.
it was at a horror movie convention. So definitely the two worlds met. It was fun being a part of that.
Nice. Yeah, because I know growing up, my dad and I would watch, Elvira would be syndicated and on. Not so much because we liked those movies, but she had some talent that we did appreciate. But then growing up, being in Chicago, Sven Gulli is, still on the air here. He's been doing that kind of stuff for over 40 years now in the Chicago market, and he's like actually a big wrestling fan too. So there's like some crossover there. And
now I moved to this little town in Ohio called Chatfield, where I live currently. I buy a house in Chatfield, and my next door neighbor is Dr. Lady. He's a late night horror movie host that was on during the late 80s, early 90s, and he lives right across the street from me, and he has a horror movie museum
wow,
in his house.
that's pretty cool.
He turned it down.
That's pretty cool.
So I've been over to bug him many times. We've even filmed a couple promos together over in his. He has a room made up like a mad scientist laboratory, and we've done a couple videos in there together. A couple of wrestling promos.
Nice, very nice. So you start doing this, and you said that was like late 90s when you started training in
1996. Yep.
96.
98. I did my first enhancement talent job with WWF.
Okay. At what point did you become aware of IWA Mid South? And how did you find out about IWA at that point?
And there was a promoter that would go all over called Pizza Joe, and he did a promotion called Championship Wrestling. And he would bring in fresh off of TV faces, WWF talent. And he would always run fairgrounds and big auditoriums, and he would get big crowds. Well, I went to a couple of his shows, talked to him. He ended up booking me. And it was probably late 1998. He had me work two hardcore guys. He had me work Pondo on one of the shows, and he had me work Ian Rotten on one of the others.
Okay.
And so Ian and I stayed in contact, and that's how that happened. He ended up bringing me in after he worked me. So it was either late 98 or early 99. I had worked Ian for Pizza Joe. And I think I actually worked Ian in maybe Marion, Indiana on one of the shows that, because he would run Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Pizza Joe would run all over. And I think it was Ohio where I worked Pondo. I worked Pondo first. I know that was in 1998. And then I worked Ian after. So I think that might have been early 99 in Marion, Indiana.
Okay. So host of wrestling podcast Drinking at Moe's wanted to know what made you decide that hardcore deathmatch wrestling was something that you wanted to do. I mean, you are dubbed Mr. Insanity, but still, it takes a certain kind of person to want to be playing in barbed wire, glass, thumbtacks, etc. Was it the horror movie connection that you had, or
ECW was popular at the time? Horror movie connection. My trainer, Kid Collins, he thought it was a great match idea to have our blow off our last match of our feud at the home promotion where I started ASWA. Our final fight between me and him was a barbed wire death match. And so it went well. And we're like, let's just keep going with it. So the whole year of 1998, we did what was called the Gore for the Gold tour. And we made shirts and sold them. But every match had some kind of crazy stipulation where we had barbed wire and street fight and just different stipulations for bloody matches. And that was my start in it. And After that, and then I wrestled Pondo and Ian, and then Pondo, I would wrestle several times after that match. And then I would wrestle Ian a few more times, but then Ian ended up having me come work for IWA. So, yeah, it just sort of steamrolled. I started doing those bloody matches early in my career and steamrolled and kept going. I just kept going with them.
Okay. So it's the debut. You said it was like 98, 99 that you're wrestling Pondo and Ian and become familiar with IWA. You don't make your debut in IWA until the 2000 King of the Death matches, but it's night 2.
I believe we tried. I believe we tried to do one earlier, maybe in '99, possibly. We had tried to connect for IWA earlier than that, but either booking or there was an issue. Something prevented me from doing it. So it eventually
Well,
happened.
there wasn't a lot in '99 because we had like gotten kicked out of Kentucky. Um, we got kicked out of the armories in Indiana, so we were having a lot of difficulty finding buildings. So
Maybe I was.
there was not a lot of there was just
Maybe,
not a lot of shows in '99.
maybe I was booked on a show in '99, but it got canceled or something happened to where the
That
show.
that very well could be. Because there was some shows that got canceled in '99 because we would have J.C. Bailey's dad would call buildings and get them to cancel us. Jim Cornette would call buildings and get them to cancel us. So I ended up having to put the money out to get the Blue Barn in Charlestown, where it was our own building and we couldn't throw ourselves out. In order for us to finally really be able to start doing shows again. And that was like the very end of '99. So it's very possible that something got canceled earlier than that. But like I said, it was night 2 of King of the Death matches that you come in. Nick Manawa was pretty sure that you were actually supposed to be in the tournament. So what happened night 1 that you weren't there?
I remember I wrestled in street clothes in night 2. I had my street clothes, and I'm believing that I had a flight. That the reason I was late getting there on night 1 because we showed up on night 1, but we were late. Brain Damage rode with me, but I think we flew in from somewhere, and my luggage was lost. There was an issue with my luggage, and that's why I wrestled in street clothes. But yeah, we showed up late because of travel issues, and then Ian just put me versus Brain Damage in a non-tournament match on night 2, so he got to check out Brain Damage for the first time at that same event.
Okay. Prophet of Ash on Twitter, who is a great film guy. He did a lot of recording of IWA shows after the Smart Mark era, when Smart Mark stopped coming in to film every show. Prophet of Ash became one of the go-to guys for doing all the filming. He wanted to know, how did you find Brain Damage, or did he find you? How did you two end up hooking up?
So I started training in September or October of '96 at the ASWA Training Center in Shelby, Ohio, and Brain Damage, aka Marvin started training in November or December of '97. He came in with a buddy of his that's still a part of the promotion to this day. His buddy wrestling name was Random Pain. So Random Pain and Fortune Pain. Brain Damage was known as Fortune Pain, the younger brother of Random Pain. And they were a tag team. So his first wrestling gimmick was Fortune Pain. And he started at the same promotion I did. So many days I had been wrestling for about a year and a half at that point, a little over a year, between a year to a year and a half. And so I was in the ring daily with Marvin, and that was my training partner. So everything I had learned up to that point, I taught him. So I don't want to say I trained him, but I sure did.
Okay. Now, when they were the Payne brothers, were they like cousins to Bull Payne, or
No, I don't think they had.
Payne's just a big family,
Yeah,
maybe not related at all.
somewhere down the line, maybe.
Okay, all right.
Distant relative, maybe.
Okay, so you guys make your debut at the 2000 King of the Death matches, and then you don't come back to IWA until the 2001 King of the Death matches. Was it just a timing issue that you didn't do other shows, or
I don't think Brain Damage came back at that one, did he? I think it was Deranged. I think
it
it was
was? I think it
Deranged.
was Deranged. But like you, if from what I can tell on the results on Cage Match, like even you didn't come back. You're you did 2000 King of the Death, and then you didn't come back to IWA until the 2001 King of the Death.
Deranged started at the same school I did too in 1998. So I had
Okay.
Brain Damage and Deranged starting back to back year. I started in 96, Brain Damage in 97, and Deranged in 98 at the school, same school.
Okay. Well, that's a hell of a school then to pump out talent like that.
And now they had more recent years, they had a guy from that school named Madman Fulton, Sawyer Fulton, that went on to WWE. He was in NXT for 5 years or so, and he goes all over the world now. So Madman Fulton is from that school also.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So at the 2001 King of the Death, you lose to Too Tough Tony in the first round. Do you have any memories of that matchup?
Yeah, I blew my elbow out in that match, or I busted it's called the bursa sack. I didn't know there was such a thing existed. I did the top rope springboard across the ring from one turnbuckle to the other. I did a springboard drop kick, and he moved out of the way. Well, the bump I took, I shattered my elbow, and it blew up the next day. It blew up like a softball on the end of my elbow, and it made me sick. I remember I was really sick from it, and it was swollen, and it was dripping fluid out of it, and I had to have a veterinarian meet me at shows and drain it for me.
Wow.
I didn't want to go to the doctor, so I had a veterinarian drain it for me.
Well, sometimes it's hard to explain these injuries to doctors. And, when I had Pondo on here, we told the story about, him and Ian the first time that they had done CZW, and I took them out there
The
and
scissors.
they cut each other with the scissors.
Yeah.
And it was like a damn zoo when I took them to the hospital. It was every doctor in the hospital was paged to come in, and you got to come in here and take a look at this. You need tell them what happened, and it was just it became a three-ring circus the way people react. So I could see where if you have somebody else that you can get it done, go that route as opposed to taking it to the hospitals. Did you have to miss a lot of time with the elbow injury, or you
Threw a
worked
pad,
through it?
threw a giant knee pad on my elbow and taped it on, and then took a um, excess amount of opiate pain medication.
Okay.
And I never stopped taking the medication for over 12 years.
Was that the start of your troubles?
Oh yeah.
Was that you weren't doing it before?
I was just drinking and smoking weed before that. I would sometimes people cocaine or whatever, but the pill problem that almost killed me started around that time. Yeah,
Okay.
it went for 12 years. February 4th, 2013 was my final day of taking any opiates or anything at all.
Okay.
So coming up here in a month and a few days will be my 13-year sober date, and I'll have not taken any Tylenol, cold medicine, Advil, alcohol, marijuana, pain pills, cocaine, nothing legal or illegal, flu shots, COVID shots. I've not taken any medication for. I took four ibuprofen. I've taken four ibuprofen in the past 13 years.
Wow. Well, congratulations that you were able to beat those demons. Way too many, especially in professional wrestling, way too many were not able to accomplish that, and we've lost way too many because of it. So I'm glad that you came out on the other end
My
And
shoot job is a drug and alcohol counselor. That's what I do every day for a living.
okay, were you doing? Did that become your job after you became sober, or were you doing that while you were partaking?
I was I was 2.5 years sober when I started as a clinician.
Okay, okay, and
Almost
then
3 years. Almost 3 years sober when I started.
okay, and did your path traveled lead you to that profession, or was that something that you were trying to do anyway?
I would have never. You'd have told me 15 years ago that I was going to be a drug and alcohol counselor. There's no way. Yeah, definitely. I fell into it. All the wrestlers put their eggs in one basket. They're either going to make it as a wrestler or die trying, and
Right.
that would have been me. And I went to a counseling center and went to see a counselor, and I took medically assisted treatment. It's called Suboxone, and I weaned off the Suboxone. And February 4th, 2013, I was off of it. And from that day forward, yeah, the counselor said, "You have attended all these classes. You have the knowledge. Why don't you switch which side of the desk you're on?" And it sounded like an interesting game plan. I didn't have anything else going. I retired from wrestling when I got sober because I thought it would be too much of a trigger. So I was retired for a year and then finally went back. After being sober for a year, I went back and started wrestling again. But yeah, I've retired multiple times. I think I've had 3 or 4 retirements.
Well,
Everybody,
that's the
everybody
rest.
does.
That's the wrestler retirement. You know, I retired, well, quit in 2009, August 28th, 2009, like the 12th or 13th time that Ian did we're closing up shop. This is it. We're done. Um, I took that opportunity to, I went to the ring and I said, I'm done. And I don't care if you bring it back again. I'm done, because I was getting married in December of that year. And I'm like, I, I need to actually make money, not hemorrhage it and stuff. And I was like, I am of no use anymore, um, and got out. I've done one show since then. That was the Rollin' Hard um, tribute show after he had passed. I managed Mitch on that.
What year
Um,
was that?
well, it might have been like 2010, 2011. I mean, I know Roland passed in 2008, but it wasn't an IWA show that did the Roland tribute. It was a different group in the areas, and I know it was after I had quit, but I can't remember it. So it had to have been like, I'm thinking 2010, maybe 2011 that it happened. Um, but I've been toying with the idea of trying to, you know, doing this podcast and wondering about, my legacy. And not that I have a legacy, but, um, I didn't really leave on my own terms, kind of thing. And so, I've had some unfinished business and some people that I wanted to work with that I didn't get to. And, we're all getting older, and maybe, I just had Mickey on. She's the episode that just debuted a couple of days ago from when we're taping this. And, I told her on that episode, it pained me that I never got to manage her. Um, I really had wanted to do that. And she was like, well, I'm all for you coming back and managing me once. So we're trying to put something together to find a place that'll allow that to happen. So we'll see what comes of it. But, it's
Never
never
say
say
never.
never.
Never
Yeah,
say never. Maybe there will be a second time that I'll be in your family.
maybe time will tell on that. Um, But let's go back to 2002 here, because as I was trying to, find stuff that you did in IWA, since my memory is shoddy, I'm going through Cage Match, and I came across a match that happened for a group called IWF that I wasn't familiar with in Detroit, 2002. Toby Klein and Deranged defeat CM Punk and Colt Cabana. And that just seemed like a very intriguing matchup to me, stylistically wise. Do you have any memories of that match at all?
That match is actually available for you to watch on YouTube.
Okay.
I think I get the pin. I think I pinned CM Punk.
Oh, nice.
I've wrestled.
You are the uncrowned
That's
WWE
right.
World Champion then, or whatever they call it.
I've pinned Seth Rollins and I've pinned CM Punk. Both matches, both pins are available on YouTube.
Very nice. I was shocked to see that you were not in the 2002 King of the Death matches. Was it an injury? You booked elsewhere? Just didn't want to do it? Like what led to you not being on that one?
I did the Tournament of Death in CZW in 2002, the original CZW Tournament of Death.
Okay.
So I know I was actively doing death matches at the time. There would have been no reason for me not to. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't line up that one.
Okay.
You would have thought after the match with Tony in 2001 they would have wanted to have me back. I thought that was a pretty good match.
Yeah. I couldn't believe when I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm like, you did the 2000 King of the Death, you did the 2001 King of the Death, and then you don't come back until the 2003.
Had to be a booking issue. I think
So,
I was getting from 2000 to 2005. Every weekend I had multiple matches. So there was a 5-year stretch. I was wrestling 150 to 200 matches a year. So,
and I mean, that's pretty good. And great that you're able, one of the ones that were able to get that many bookings and, be able to hone your craft. So you come into the 2003 King of the Death matches and you face the Necro Butcher, and probably one of the most iconic moments in IWA Mid South history. You launch that goddamn VCR into his head. I posted that clip on social media today and was like, I hope I don't say anything tonight that makes you angry enough to do something like that to me. But we got about 400 miles between us if you're in Ohio and I'm in Chicago. So I don't think I got to worry about you being able to throw a VCR that far.
Hey, did you just have tornado pass through there not too long ago this afternoon?
It was closer to my hometown of Morris. I know they kept running stuff here saying it like Kankakee, which is probably 2 hours south of Chicago, probably 30, 40 minutes from where I grew up in Morris. But they were having tornado watches and stuff down in that area.
Because we're going to have them. I live in North Central Ohio. We're going to have them here later this evening, and it's coming this way from you guys. Yeah, from west of us. So yeah, it's going to be later this evening. We're going to be on high alert.
Okay, well, hopefully it bypasses you guys.
No, I want to go out chasing it. That's my other. Not only
you're a tornado chaser.
Yeah,
okay.
Not only is horror movies and wrestling my hobbies, but so is storm chasing.
Don't you have something that's safer? You need to get some safer hobbies, okay?
I live on the edge. What can I say?
All right. But other than the VCR, do you have any memories of that match with Necro in 2003?
It was a wild one. We were fighting. It was basically a fight.
Yeah, I was watching it, and you guys just, I think you put him against the ring post and just waylaid him with a couple of thumbtack bat shots that like sent shivers down my spine just watching it. And I mean, you guys just beat the hell out of each other. Did you notice? I mean, that was a big show. It had Smart Mark at it, taping live. It had the CZW guys that had come in. That was during the CZW IWA little invasion that was going on. Did you notice a lot of extra notoriety onto your name after that show was released and people started buying the DVDs, or were
Yeah,
you already so well established that you didn't notice a difference?
I noticed that me and Necro wrestled a lot more after that. A lot of people started booking us to wrestle, either team or wrestle. We either teamed or wrestled for a couple years after that.
Yeah. But again, you don't come back to IWA until a year later, and you make your return at the 2004 King of the Death matches. So, you know, in 4 years, you only had like 4 appearances, which just shocked me because I thought you were around a lot more than that.
They were big deals, though. I feel like
they were very big deals.
I feel like they all made an impact. Every appearance made an impact. I made it count.
You did. You definitely made it count. And at that 2004 King of the Death, you make it to the finals. So you had a rematch with Necro. I had thought there was another like big VCR spot in that one, but rewatching it this morning, it was Necro launched like a giant computer monitor at you, and there was randomly there was a guy on Twitter that has been watching like 2010s IWA, and so he's been watching like Reed Bentley and John Wayne Murdoch, and he's been talking about it on Twitter, and he made a comment about, well, in 2010's IWA, they were really big fans of using giant home electronics as weapons. And I'm like, I had to reply to him and go, that was going all the way back to 1997, because Madman Pondo got power bombed into one of those old school big screen tube TVs. Not the flat screens, but the giant ones. He got power bombed into one of those by Tom Burton on a show. And then I told him, I was like, you did the VCR, this giant computer monitor. I was like, goes way back before the 2010s. And he's like, well, I'm going in he's going in reverse order. And he's like, he'll eventually get to those, but he's now looking forward to seeing that. But you end up beating Necro. You beat Tank. You beat JC Bailey before you lose the Corporal in the finals. In 2004 death matches, that's a hell of a murderer's row to face in one tournament. Do you have any memories from that tournament?
My son just brought up a point to me, not to take away from that, but pop your head over and say hi again if you want. Yeah, this is JC. This is Joseph Carl Klein. And
Nice
the reason he has that name is he's named after JC Bailey. We actually spoke with Joe Bailey after JC had passed, and he blessed us with the ability to. I asked his permission, so yeah, that's JC right there. Yeah, he's named after JC Bailey. But I had a blown knee. I had a torn ACL, and I wasn't mobile for that whole tournament. And I told Ian when he gave me the booking, I said, I'll take the booking, but I can't do much because my knee. And he said, we'll make it easy on you. Is that making it easy?
So Necro, Tank, JC Bailey, and Corporal in 2 days is taking it easy on you. Wow.
After 5 weeks removed from blowing my ACL.
That is, I didn't watch the other matches. I just watched the Necro one because that was all I had time for today, and I could not tell that I was struck by how much hair you had, and I think that was like a key point of Prazak and Punk on commentary, debating whether that was a wig that you were wearing because of how much hair that you had, and they weren't used to seeing that on you. but I could not watching that match. I could not tell that that you had a torn ACL. That's amazing to hear.
I didn't leave the ground. I didn't do any off the ropes or anything.
But I mean, you guys were laying it in on each other and beating the dog snot out of each other, and I couldn't tell at all that you were hampered by an injury. But 2004 actually sees you become a regular, if you want to call it that, as you actually wrestle Madman Pondo 2 months in a row in Highland. And speaking of Madman Pondo, I guess this would be pronounced Yashiro. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, whoever you are. But he had submitted a question to Nick Manawa, and he wants to know, what was it like working the IWA East Coast shows that Pondo ran, and if you had any immediate memories from working IWA East Coast that come to mind?
I don't remember much of those shows because it was a party atmosphere. And I was into that lifestyle at the time. So there was a bar that we would all go to after the shows and drink. There were people that would supply the wrestlers with gimmicks at the shows, whatever gimmicks we wanted. So I do remember wrestling Pondo in a good match at one of the IWA East Coast shows. And I also remember wrestling Jun Kasai in a Pit of Lobsters match. And we had to be very creative with how we incorporated the lobsters into the match. And I thought that match was on YouTube too, I believe. So I think it was a really, I think we incorporated the lobsters the best way possible. So I do remember that match. I wrestled Thumbtack Jack at a IWA East Coast show. That was a pretty good match. Hold on, train's going by. But the Pondo match at IWA Mid South was a fans lumberjack strap match.
Yeah, I think that was the second one.
And
you guys had done one, and then you came back and did the
Pondo was the fan favorite, so they didn't hit him, but they just lit me up. There were some big boys that got picked for that, and they were lighting me up. Every time I fell out of the ring, they lit me up. I had to get back into the ring quickly because they were hitting me.
Yeah. Yeah, IWA Mid South, we did a lot of those fan lumberjack, and one of the first, like the very first one, Brent Blades was the fan that ended up winning the raffle to be the fan lumberjack, and then the second time we did it, it was a guy named Sean, and he drew like the first time that a guy got thrown out of the ring. I remember like one of the wrestlers drew back to use the belt and ended up like hitting the fan on the backswing. And it was probably on purpose, as a rib on the fan. But as soon as he got hit with that belt, he put his belt down on the ground and he went back and sat down and he said, "Fuck that, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore." So, interesting that your experience doing it, the fans had no problem laying it in on you at that Highland show.
There were multiple fans with straps in that one.
Okay.
I don't think there was, I think there was more than four. I don't know how many for sure, but I know there was at least four people that were pretty good sized guys that had straps.
Okay. Well, Ian loved to sell those raffle tickets to try. The more people that could win, the more that might be willing to buy, I guess. So that's not surprising to hear at all. So then, after the two matches with Pondo, there's a little bit of a break before you come back. But you come back, and I had to break this news to you before we started recording. It's your one night that you got to spend in the Fannin Family. Something to Prove was the name of the show at the ECW Arena. The main event is the Notorious Samoa Joe versus Necro Butcher match. But on that show, you team with Madman Pondo and JC Bailey to take on Ian and Axel Rotten and Nate Webb. I was managing JC at the time, so I was managing the team. It's the only night that Madman Pondo was managed by me, and the only night that you were managed by me in our times sharing the IWA locker room. You told me you didn't remember me being involved, which I don't blame you, but you did have a memory from that match. If you want to go ahead and share that on the actual podcast here.
Yeah, I took a chair shot in that match from Axel Rotten that hardweighted me, and I was bleeding very bad. And I had another match later in the evening. It was me and Necro versus the Hate Club, Nick Gage and Justice Payne. And I was bleeding from the very beginning of that second match. I bled so badly in that first match. My head was cut so badly. I wrapped it in gauze, but it didn't help. It opened up immediately upon the second match. I bled the entire match later in the evening for the CZW match.
Okay. The after that matchup, you end up winning the 2005 King of the Death Matches. What are your memories of winning that tournament? Any of the specific matches you had or key moments?
It was me and JC Bailey and Necro in the finals. I remember that. I was the only guy to make it to the finals 3 years in a row at that time. I'm sure it's been done since, but I made it 04, 05, 06 in the final.
Yes.
And so to win that one, at the time, that was a big deal for me. I don't even think I got a trophy for it. I don't think there was any trophy.
I don't think we really ever, that cost money that, Ian didn't want to spend to have something to commemorate, that the guy got to keep.
I've always brought this up, and I don't know of other people that can say it, but if Ian and I agreed on a price, I always got that price. I never got paid $1 less. Whenever I went and worked for IWA Mid South, I always knew it was a guaranteed booking with a guaranteed payday. I never got paid 1 cent less than what we had discussed.
You would probably be could probably count on one hand the number of people that could probably say that one.
So I found that out over the years.
I'm glad to hear that you had that experience. It might also be because you were just in on mostly in on the bigger shows, for the most part, up until like after winning the King of the Death Matches, you actually do become a regular and start being on a lot of shows after that. Was becoming a regular something that you were trying to do? Was it just you had the openings and so you went ahead and put the IWA shows on it? Because you were saying earlier, that you were pretty much every weekend you had bookings. Was it that you just wanted to go ahead and do IWA at that point, or had other bookings stopped? What led to you finally having the time to come in on a more regular basis?
I can't say for sure. I know that I've always been key as that I am an independent contractor, because I've had many promotions over the years tell me, well, if you wrestle for us, you're exclusive for us. I've had people say imaginary circles around their town say you can't wrestle within 60 miles of this town. What a load of BS. You are an independent contractor. If somebody wants to pay me my mortgage payment and pay me my full-time employment, why not? I'll humor them with wrestling only for them in a 60-mile radius or whatever that they have decided. There was a guy in Michigan. I think his name was Marshall Redder. and he brought me into. He ran a free show at a big theater somewhere in Indiana, right on the Indiana-Michigan border. But he wanted to run Indiana and Michigan. Rhino was on this particular show, I remember. But after I did that show for him, he mailed me a contract, and it stated that I could only wrestle for him in Michigan and Indiana. And it had the price, the fee that he was going to pay me for per each match. So I took a black magic marker and marked out 90% of the contract and then signed it and then put the price that I wanted per match, which was more than what he had offered. I never heard back from him. He never booked me again for that. But yeah, I just when people tell me, well, you can't wrestle for just anybody in this town, we own this town. I'm like, whatever the logic is, I'm sure it's you don't want your talent on a bad show. I'm sure that's what it is. They think their show's the best show. They don't want or they don't want a bad show ruining their town. All I could tell them was this: when I was on their show, if I was on every show that came to town, my match, the fans would remember. So if the fans went to a bad show and my match was on that show, they'd be like, "Oh, that was a horrible show." But that Mr. Insanity guy, he was cool. He was on that show, So
Well, I can speak to this because I was privy to some of the, because Ian was one that would do this at different times. He would try to do it, and his rationale was, if somebody can pay to go see you at, OVW, are they going to have enough money to then come watch you on our show? So if you had a fan in that area and they only had money to go to one show, we wanted it, he wanted it to be IWA that they would pick. Which,
my counter to that is, when the promotions would say that to me, my counter would be, do you have enough money to make me only exclusively for your show?
yeah, you asked what the rationale might be. So I was giving you the at least what would be said on our end when Ian would try to do that when it came.
Hopefully my end. Hopefully now you see it for what it is.
Yeah, hey, I understood it because I knew the guys weren't getting, paid enough to, and so make your money. That's what everybody is after, and that is everybody's goal. Not everybody was doing this shit to just lose money like I was. You want to actually receive a payday and know that your time was spent worthwhile, and that you were appreciated for what you did. And money was what showed that. But I was stupid, and so I didn't have that viewpoint at the time, and regret it to this day. But I digress. Don't want to go down that rabbit hole too deep.
You drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you?
I did. But in 2006, it looked like you spent almost a month in Japan, and you ended up winning a tag tournament over in Japan with Madman Pondo as your partner. Do you have any memories of the Japan tour, and how many times have you done a Japan tour?
I did 3 tours of Japan in 05, 06, 2005, and 2006. I went 3 separate times.
Okay.
I think I was there for 120 to 150 days total for the 3 times.
Wow. So it was a long period of time each time.
Yeah, it was like 30 to 45 days each time.
Okay. Nice.
And then I would wrestle for Big Japan Pro Wrestling, and then there would be smaller groups. Like that particular tag tournament me and Pondo won was for a promotion called Fighting's Ultimate Crazy Kings.
Okay. So yes, the acronym, I saw they didn't spell all that out on the cage match results. They just used the initials of those words, and I was like, that's very interesting. That's quite the name for a promotion. I liked it.
Yeah.
And did you enjoy being in Japan? Was it a culture shock to go over there, take
I
some getting
liked it.
used to, or?
I liked it a lot. I wish I could go back. There was a chance to go back, and I was working as a FedEx delivery guy. My wrestling career, I had screwed over some because of my drug addiction. I had ruined some chances in wrestling, and so I actually had to get a shoot job, and I got a driver's job with FedEx. And when Pondo had contacted me about another Big Japan Pro Wrestling tour, I had to turn it down because I couldn't take that much time off from my shoot job. And they never asked again after I turned it down. So I always regretted that. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
I would
you
have loved to have gone back. Yeah.
okay? So you come back from the tour that I saw, where you won the tag tournament with Pondo, and you go pretty much right to the. You had already mentioned you made the finals again, the third year in a row of the 2006 King of the Death matches. Prophet of Ash again had some questions on this. He wanted to know, why exactly did you think a bottle of mouthwash with a child-proof cap on it was water, and did it at least make your eyes minty fresh?
He remembered that. See, Mr. Insanity. I planned that. Yeah, I seen what was out there, and I thought this would be great. This will make people remember it, and they did. I'm
Well,
glad
here, yeah, 20
it
years
worked.
later, he remembered it. Uh, but did it make your eyes minty fresh?
Oh, it burned,
Yeah, I can only imagine.
but I did it as my character. My
Yeah.
Mr. Insanity character. I can get away with doing stuff like that. I wasn't the brightest bulb. So I would purposely do stuff like that.
So you admit I had written down a question that if you did you take any pride in the accomplishment of making it to the finals 3 years in a row, but you had already pretty much answered that one. Um, so I mean, with the results being predetermined, it's always interesting to get different guys' takes on it. Like, what did it did it have that sense of accomplishment to you that you were the one chosen to be the first to accomplish the finals 3 years in a row? And
I think somebody's actually won it 3 years in a row since then, haven't? Did Matt Tremont?
I don't know.
I think Matt Tremont
I
won
didn't.
three
What?
tournaments 3 years in a row, but I don't know if it was the same one or not. But yeah, I don't know. I felt like that was my niche. I unfortunately, because I thought I was just as good of a regular worker as I was deathmatch worker. And Smart Mark, I think Mike Burns had appreciated some of my regular matches and put them on the greatest hits DVD and put it out. Smart Mark put a DVD of me out, and it had some of my regular matches on there. And one of them was from Chicago against a masked wrestler, a thin guy. What was that guy's name? He wore a mask. He was a high flyer, and I'm.
Delirious?
What is it?
Did you go against Delirious?
Nobody was a lot like Delirious. This character.
Okay.
He was a younger guy than Delirious. I would know it. Jigsaw.
Jigsaw. Okay.
I wrestled Jigsaw, and I matched him move for move, and I thought that was kind of a goal of mine, was no matter what style I'm in there with, I'm going to match him. I'm going to do that style just as good as they do. So if it's a high flyer, lucha, death match, shoot, like stiff match, whatever the match was, I'm going to match the guy in his style and show that I'm just as skilled in that style as he is. So yeah, the death match, I wanted to be known as one of the top guys, but I also wanted to be one of the top guys in whatever style it was that the promoter had me wrestling.
Okay. So that gets me into the next things up here. On June 16th, 2006, you win a battle royal to become the number one contender for the IWA Mid South Heavyweight title. And then the next night, you win the title. June 17th, 2006, you win the IWA Mid South Heavyweight title from Trick Davis. Do you have any memories of that matchup and winning the title?
None. Zero. I know it happened. It wasn't the Intercontinental title win in Puerto Rico. It was nothing like that. But I don't remember anything about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because this was during the time I might have been back from my sabbatical that I went on after the Jimmy Jacobs barbed wire bat incident in January of 2006. I do know that I was at the King of the Death because Mitch was winning, and I wanted to be there for that. So I don't have any memory of you winning against Trick either. But I'm not entirely sure if I would have been at that show at that time. So like I said, I know there was quite a while that I was put in timeout for cooling off after the Jimmy Jacobs stuff. And then that leads to the 2006 TPI, where Jimmy Jacobs comes back to the company. We do the angle where I bring Mitch and Bull back as the BMFers, and we interfere in Josh Abercrombie versus Tyler Black, who's now known as Seth Rollins. Loser leave IWA match. I interfere. Jimmy Jacobs interferes, and we help Josh Abercrombie defeat Tyler Black. The crowd goes deathly silent as I shake Jimmy Jacobs' hand in the middle of the ring and give him a hug, which then brings out Mitch and Bull, and we start beating down Jimmy Jacobs. And
what a cool gimmick.
And Mr. Insanity Toby Klein comes to the ring to try to save Jimmy Jacobs, and we beat you up and leave you injured, leading straight into Chuck Taylor beating you for the title that night.
He couldn't have done it by himself. It took the bad mother effers to do it. Yeah.
It did. It did. And do you have any specific memories of that? Were you disappointed that the title was being taken off you? Did you even care?
This is a dark time period in my life. You can look no further than my physical shape from 2005 until I lost the title in 2007. I probably lost 60 pounds. Yeah, I was on a downward spiral. I was no longer taking my physical appearance top priority. I wasn't lifting. I was doing lots of illegal substances. And it looks like I was. When I look back at that time period, you can tell. Yeah. I don't remember much about. There's a few years that are a blur, like that movie Adam Sandler, Click. I had the fast forward button pushed for a few years there, and I was doing drugs and didn't have any clue of what was going on around me.
Okay. Well, Chucky Dank wanted you to know that he loved your title run in 2006, and he wanted to know if you had a favorite match during that run. Was the Jigsaw match you talked about during that time frame?
I don't think I had won the belt yet. I was still in pretty good shape when I wrestled Jigsaw. I think that was prior to winning the title.
Okay.
I honestly won't be able to tell you who I wrestled when I was the champion. I don't remember enough. I remember I beat Trick Davis for the title and I lost it to Chuck Taylor. What happened in between there, I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I should have wrote some of that stuff down and maybe it would have jogged the memory.
That was a bad period of my life. I was going through a divorce and I was using heavily and I don't remember any of it.
Okay.
I was wrestling all the time though. I was flying out to CZW all the time and wrestling Freein and what other promotions would have me in that time period.
Okay. With that, you didn't have a whole lot of IWA Mid South appearances after that while I was still around. Looks like you you did make it to the finals of the double death tag team deathmatch tournament. I think that was the Tough Crazy Bastards, you and Necro at that point.
In 2008. In 2008, there was two really good matches. There was a it wasn't Kings of the Death match. It was called something else. There was a bloody night.
Like Kings of the Crimson Mask.
Yep.
Or something, maybe.
Yep. I wrestled Insane Lane at that one. It was a good match. Kings of the Crimson Mask. And then there was a match. I think it was maybe the 500th anniversary show. I wrestled. He looked like Dynamite Kid. He was a little guy. He was real muscular.
I had a story about that show, but I didn't look to see it. It involved a couple of your compatriots that we mentioned earlier, but I did not look to see who it was that you had faced that night. So
it was a little guy. He was real muscular, and he was wrestling all over. He wrestled in Japan and all over. He reminded me of Dynamite Kid.
Okay.
The guy I wrestled, Davey Richards. Does that sound right?
Richards, okay.
Yeah.
Surprised he showed up. He's got. I think he's one that I've seen has quite the reputation of not showing up to bookings.
I wrestled Davey Richards with Billy Graham as my manager.
Okay.
At that one.
So I have a Billy Graham story about that 500th show, but I'll see what are your, like, we'll have some, just finish up here with question, like some of the other fan questions, and then just like a name association kind of thing. So since you mentioned Billy Graham there, what are your thoughts on Billy Graham, and if you have any?
He created the Cult Fiction stable, and whenever I wrestle, I still to this day will represent the Cult Fiction stable. I always wear that shirt, the Cult Fiction shirt. So that was a vital part of my wrestling history, being in that stable.
Yeah, it's.
Did I lose you? My cable.
Yep, you're back. There you go. So my Billy Graham story, my only interaction with the man, was at that 500th show. I believe it was Joliet, Illinois. Ended up being Mean and Hard's last match together. It was Roland's last match before he passed at the end of that year. And it was Mean and Hard against Vulgar Display of Power. I think that was the team name that Deranged and Brain Damage used, right?
VDOP, yep.
Yeah. And so Billy Graham was managing them, and he had come up to me, and he was like, it would be an honor if you would hit me with a thumbtack bat tonight. He's like, I watched what you did to Jimmy Jacobs, and I just loved that. I want to take 2 shots from the thumbtack bat, and I want you to swing it like you did to Jimmy Jacobs. And I told him, I was like, that I really hit him as hard as I could. That's what you want, and you want 2 of them. And he's like, yeah. I want 2 of these. And so I was like, okay, whatever. Just remember, you're the one that asked this. And we got out in the match, and I hit him with the first one, and I bent down to pick him up to hit him the second time, and he goes, I don't want the second one. Yeah. And I was like, well, I knew you wouldn't. And so then we had to struggle, and to this day, it aggravates the hell out of me because they didn't catch it on the cameras. The guys on commentary mentioned that I hit him with the bat, but there was no video footage of it. And I'm like,
in my match, was that before my match or after?
I don't remember. The only thing I remember that night is the stuff that we did.
Because in my match, the ending was him spraying like a mood of mist into Davey Richards' face, and then me. I forget if I rolled him up or whatever, but he did it way too soon. It wasn't the cue. He just randomly jumped up onto the apron and did the Muda Mist to Davey, and we're like, "What are you doing? It's not time. What are you doing it now for?"
Oh, nice. It looks like you're actually wearing the T-shirt. Nick Manawa got a late question in for me. He said that you and Deranged ran your own promotion called Addicted to Wrestling for a few shows, and that you had used some IWA guys. Nick Manawa wanted to know, how did you like being the boss?
That was a fun experience. It was definitely Deranged put the financial end of it. That was his financial experiment, and I booked talent for him, and I helped run the locker room and book the matches and stuff. But yeah, that was a fun experience. I felt like we had good matches from start to finish for every show. I think every show we had good wrestlers. We brought in Dave Christ, Jake Christ, which Christ do we not cancel?
I don't know. I know that I know one of them pretty much torched the end of IWA.
The one that torched the IWA belt, we brought him in.
I think that was Jake.
Yeah, we brought Jake in, and then we brought Josh Crane in from Indianapolis. We brought we brought we brought Pondo in. We brought Mickey in. Cash Flow, we brought him in. We brought DBA in from Detroit. I thought we brought a Randy West. I thought we brought some good talent. We mixed it up. We brought in some good wrestlers.
How many? Do you know how many shows you ended up doing?
7.
October of 22, January of 23,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
April of 23, June, July. Yeah, we had 7 shows
Okay.
through 2022 and 2023.
Nice. So did you, I mean, you said it was a unique experience. Something that you would consider running shows for somebody else in the future, or you
Sure.
had your fill of it? You got that experience and you
Sure,
had enough of
I would love it, but I wouldn't be able to finance it. Yeah, I have too much. I have all my finances. A wrestler could call me out of the blue and ask me to pay for his hotel room, and I would be unable to at this point because my finances are all locked up. I have mortgage payment, car payments. I got 4 kids in the house still. I got money put where I need it to be right now. So
Yeah, Chicago is an expensive place. I make decent money at my job, and it's just enough to pay the mortgage, pay the HOA, pay the insurance, make the car payment, pay the credit cards, and you know, and then hope that nothing drastic happens. And if it wasn't for the in-laws, there'd be a couple of times where cars have broke down and died over the last 15 years that wouldn't have been able to replace if it hadn't been for them. So I definitely know what you're saying there. And magically I changed my phone number so I don't get phone calls like the one you just mentioned. So maybe you need to look into that.
no, I can be brutally honest with people if I have to be. I've always told the wrestlers in the wrestling business, if you guys need to get to rehab, we'll figure out a way to make it happen. If you need a couch to crash on for the night, we'll make it happen. But I don't ever give money because I know what I would have done with money if someone would have gave it to me. So I'm never going to give anybody money because I'm just assuming they're all guilty by association. I know what I would have done with it in my heyday, so nobody else gets to try that on my dime, you know.
Well, just to talk about the times that I ran the shows when um, Ian would have another booking and be, Milwaukee, California, out of the country, wherever, and I'd run the shows. Um, the guys would just be ecstatic when they would walk in the building and see that I was the one greeting them and giving them the finishes because they knew it was going to be such a faster show. Um, no 40-minute promos to start off the night. No 50-minute long intermission to try to sell as many concessions and gimmicks and raffle tickets as possible. It was get in, get out. I didn't want to be there all night, and certain people did not like that. They were like, I can't sell a DVD if there's only one disc. You need to spread this shit out a little bit, make it a 2 or 3 disc night, and it'd be like, nobody wants to be here that long. No one wants to, no one wants to spend 7 hours in your building on a Saturday night. They have lives. They've got other things they want to do. Let's be able to get home at a reasonable time. So those would usually be the experiences when I would be in charge. I would just try to think of what did I not like about being having to answer to somebody, and put those and try to do it differently when I was in charge. Who were some of your favorite deathmatch opponents?
Probably Necro, because we could have made probably a best of DVD of our matches. Pondo, always had good matches with him. I was Nick Gage's first opponent ever at Tournament of Death, and I thought we had a good match. In some of the tag matches, me and Necro versus the Hate Club, Justice Pain and Nick Gage, some of those were really good. Almost Jimmy. He was one of my favorites to wrestle. I really clicked with him in the ring. Deranged.
Okay. So flip side, do you have least favorite deathmatch opponents that you just didn't click with or didn't like, didn't think they were good?
You know, there was a guy that left the building, and I think he didn't want to work me for whatever reason. It was an IWA Mid South show. Who was the guy that did the chainsaw gimmick for IWA Mid South?
Manslaughter.
Yeah, he was booked against me for the King of the Death 2004. And he left.
You can blame me for that one.
You booked us against each other?
No. I could not stand Manslaughter. I despised Manslaughter, thought that he was the drizzling shits. He ran his mouth about my then girlfriend, and he had come to a show and bought a ticket. Ian knew that I hated his guts. I walked out and saw him in the crowd. I walked right up to him and said, "Get the fuck out of my building." And Patty's like, he bought a ticket. I threw the ticket money at Patty and said, "There's his money. Give it back to him. Give him his money back. There's the money for his ticket. Get the fuck out of my building. Don't ever let me see you at a show again." And I wasn't at the first night of the King of the Death matches in 04. I think I had to work my shoot job. And he was supposed to lose whatever match he had so that he would not be at night 2 when I was going to be there. And for whatever reason, Ian forgot. He wanted to change something. He thought maybe I'd change my mind. But he put Manslaughter over, and then Manslaughter knew better than to stick around that second night, so he did not show up.
He showed up. He talked to me. He showed up. He said, "I'm not feeling so well." And
Okay,
then he disappeared, and I didn't see him. And then they rebooked me against somebody else.
okay, so then he must have realized I was there, or somebody told him I was coming, something, because yeah, he wasn't going to be there when I was there. What was your worst injury in a death match? Was it that elbow that you talked about in 2001 when you broke the elbow, or did you have something worse than that?
It was a street fight. It wasn't a death match per se, but it was me versus Maniac Matt Bourne in Elwood City, Pennsylvania. It was September of 2003. September of 2002 or 3, either 02 or 03. And me and Maniac Matt Bourne did a street fight, and he pulled an electric cord out from underneath the ring, and he wrapped it around my neck and threw me over the top rope. And I was supposed to grab the cord, but I couldn't get my hand on it. And lights out, I fell off the apron, purple face. Sabu came out as planned for a run-in on the match with his music, and he realized that I was out cold on the floor, so he pulled the cord off my neck. And I had what appeared to be a seizure. My legs and arms were moving. And I come to. I have a picture. I have the picture. Somebody gave me a picture. 3 pictures. One where I'm struggling to get the cord, and you can see my eyes are bulging and my face is purple. And then there's a picture with a man giving me CPR. And then there's a picture of my eyes in the locker room were bleeding. Blood came out of my eyes, were like tears.
Ooh, wow.
So that was probably the closest to death in a ring. I'm sure it was very close.
Wow.
They wanted me to go to a hospital, but I just drove home. I drove from Elwood City, Pennsylvania back to Shelby, Ohio, 3-hour drive. I drove by myself after the show, just went home. Never went to the hospital for it.
That's Mark Wolf had told a similar story, wrestling Mitch Ryder in Evansville in a dog collar chain and getting hung by the chain, and like his foot slipped and left him dangling, and he got choked out by the chain and thought that was going to be the end of him that night. This is the first podcast I've recorded since finding out the news of his passing. I know we chatted a little before. You didn't have a lot of interactions with Mark, but you did have a nice little thing that you had said about when you had gotten onto Facebook, and the first person was that sent you a friend request.
Yeah, it was Mark. Yeah, he was always nice to me. He was always respectful in the locker room to me. I always got along just fine with him.
Another one that we lost way too soon. Do you have anything you want to say about brain damage?
Oh yeah, he was traveled with me more than anyone at that time period. He was the guy that traveled with me. If we flew out of the same airport together, we would ride to the airport together, and then he would help me after the shows get on the airport because he was in a better state than I was. I might have to be guided along, and he would be my handler and help me get onto the flight. Yeah, he was something else. He was the nicest guy. He was the toughest guy in the ring and the nicest guy outside of it.
Yeah, I didn't get to know him all that well. About one of the few interactions I had was that match at the 500th show with him. But
legit tough guy. Legit.
Yeah, him and Necro, I would not have wanted to trade punches with those guys.
And if you watch, whenever I worked him and Necro, I would always work my punches. They would stiff me. I would always give them work punches.
Any thoughts on Corporal Robinson?
He's another one I feel had a fall from grace, much like I did. Yeah, I think he struggled with demons too. I don't know how he is now. I hope he's all right. But
He reached out. He reached out to me the other day. Actually, I think it was on Christmas. He reached out to me. Said he's been listening to the podcast and offered to be a guest at any point if I need to find somebody. And I told him that I will eventually reach out to him. But what would my idea for Corporal, since a lot of the guys do have some issues with him because of some of those demons, I told him that I was going to let some guys say their piece on him and tell some stories, some wild stuff about him, and then when it's his time to come on, we can do it like it's a court case, almost like A Few Good Men. And I could ask him about all these stories that have been brought up, and he can shout the iconic, "You're goddamn right I did," when asked about whether he did all these things or not. And
there was one time
he laughed at that. So yeah, if you've got any kind of a story that you could share about Corporal like that, then we can use it for that later.
There was one time there was a green guy that wrestled maybe Chicago, but he had a rental car, and Corporal saw us getting out of this rental car, and he ran and jumped onto the hood, and his ass went right through the front windshield. The front windshield caved in. The green kid, the new kid, he was so upset. He was crying. His car that he had rented for the show, the windshield, Corporal popped the windshield right out of the front windshield out of that vehicle. He rolled across the hood into the windshield and it shattered the windshield.
You had a chance to get car insurance, didn't
Yeah. Did he at least have car? Did he get the car insurance on the rental?
My young son, his main thought is there had to be car insurance. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think he did.
Poor guy. Speaking, since we just did Corporal,
me and Corporal did the Legends of JCW Battle Royal together, 2021, at the Gathering of the Juggalos. They contacted both of us after many years that him and I, neither one of us had been on any ICP shows for different reasons. But yeah, him and I had both been, I guess you could say, contractually let go by ICP for different reasons. But yeah, we both came back at the Gathering 2021, and we were in the Battle Royal together.
Okay. Did you have any interactions with Drake Younger?
I think I wrestled Drake for an IWA Mid South show. I'm sure of it.
It could have been, definitely same kind of time frame.
Yeah.
I'm sure you crossed paths at one point.
Yeah, I've never had any issues with Drake. I've enjoyed the interactions I've had with him over the years.
Okay.
Him and Corporal both. Neither one of them have done me wrong.
What about anything else to add on Deranged?
Just that he was like a brother. Him and I and Marvin traveled everywhere together for years and years. Me and him talk daily to this day. There was a period where we didn't for a few years, but we're straightened out now.
Okay. That's good to hear. Just because he's next up on the podcast episode list, Mean Mitch Page.
Wrestled him in the finals of 06. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I always liked him too. He's funny. He should have been a comedian.
He is him and Manoa are always a laugh a minute when when the three of us get together.
Yeah, I never had any bad words to say about him. I didn't know him real well, but the times we were together, it was like we were old friends. It was like we picked up right where we left off.
What about Bull Payne?
Always liked Bull too. Never had any hard problems with him. We had a couple of knockdown, drag out fights. Some of them for IWA Mid South. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to get Bull on the podcast. He was supposed to be this episode, and he's having some health issues. So I'm wishing Bull a speedy recovery. I've heard from him on Christmas Day that he was feeling a little bit better. So hopefully he'll be on the podcast here soon. Anything to add on Necro before we get out of here?
I thought our time working each other was pretty special. It got us both bookings all over. Very first time we ever worked was for Rude Boy in Detroit. Probably 2001, somewhere around there. Maybe early 2002. But yeah, we wrestled all over against each other. We saw many states. We wrestled each other for many promotions in many states. And then we tag teamed together, many promotions, many states. Yeah, so I thought the Tough Crazy Bastards was a fun tag team. I thought our personas fit well together. I thought we had a good gimmick as a tag team.
Yeah, I liked your idea of how you could put together a best of. I don't know how DVDs sell now in the age of streaming everything, and definitely something that Smart Mark probably should have put out 20 years ago. Would have done real well at that point, just to have some of those crazy matches all in one place that you could easily watch. So the last thing I wanted to end with here was least favorite stipulation for a death match. Anything worse than barefoot thumbtacks?
I was not a fan of glass. I always got cut in weird spots, and I always had issues with it. I had a piece of glass on my back for 12 years and didn't know it, and it caused an infection, and I had to be hospitalized, and I had to have the glass removed from my back. So yeah, I was not a fan of using glass, but I always had it in every match. So it is what it is.
Were you okay with the barefoot thumbtacks, or was that something
You know, it's funny. I step on one in the hallway now in my kids' room, and it'll drop me. I'll take a bump off of it, off of one.
Well, I told Pondo when I had him on that when him and Corporal threw me gave me a flare bump off the top rope into the thumbtacks, and they had pulled my shoe off. And Pondo just kept going, if we can do an entire match, you can do one bump, can't you? You're a tough guy. You can do one bump, can't you? And I told him, I was like, you motherfucker, that was the worst pain I ever had in my entire life. And I couldn't imagine being able to do an entire match in that. That was just way too much. Do you have anything that you want to promote? You got, is there t-shirts that people can buy of Mr. Insanity t-shirts anywhere? You got any merch or upcoming events that you might want to get some people to send some money your way with?
There's been various T-shirts. I think Die Hard Designs had a Mr. Insanity T-shirt. Maybe still do. Then the Cult Fiction shirts, different times that I would print those and have them available at the shows, but currently nothing that people can get from me unless maybe I get some printed for a show that I'm at or something. But February 21st, I'm doing the IWA Deep South for the first time ever. I've never wrestled for the Deep South. I was booked one time years ago for them, but it didn't happen. Something prevented it from happening. But yeah, IWA Deep South in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee on February 21st. That's actually my next match.
Okay. Well, wrestling fans, you can go on out to that and see Toby. Is there a way that they can get a hold of you on social media? Do you like talking to fans if they've got questions or
I have many
want to
fans
share
on
a
I have many fans on my Toby Klein Facebook page. Yeah. Look me up on Facebook. Or there's a YouTube, Toby Klein on YouTube. Yeah, look me up on there.
Okay. And wrestling fans, the Klein is spelled differently than the wrestling persona. If you go looking, that's CLINE for Toby Klein instead of a K.
One's the wrestling persona and one's the shoot persona.
So, and if
I'll leave you hanging on which is which.
there you go. And it's been great catching up with you here tonight. I really want to thank you for taking the time, especially during the holiday season when got some time off of work and spending it here going over this stuff with me tonight. Hopefully I didn't aggravate you or take up too much of your time, but thank you very much for joining me. Remember to check out Toby's YouTube, look him up on YouTube and find some of the matches that he was talking about. And go out to see him in February at the IWA Deep South show. And you said Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Yep.
So that's Dollywood, right?
Is it?
I think that's the Dollywood town. So you can hit up Dollywood and go watch Toby Klein wrestle. Remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips and matches and these podcasts. When you get to the YouTube channel, start by clicking that like button and hit subscribe. If you haven't already, please give the podcast with Mark Wolf a listen and finally remember him and the stories that he shared with me. That was episode 8 of the podcast. It was already my favorite episode of this podcast, but now it'll be untouchable. If you're interested in vintage IWA Mid South t-shirts or original designs like the one I've got on now, IWA Mid South till the bloody end, even though I abandoned ship and wasn't till the bloody end. I'm wearing it, designed by my godson, James Christopher. You can follow him on Twitter at Candido24K_. That's Candido24K_. And we're currently working with Mark's brother to try to get a Mark Wolf tribute shirt, either onto that store or somebody's Pro Wrestling Tees store, with proceeds going towards mental health charity. If you're looking to have some design work done for yourself, shoot James Christopher a DM on Twitter. Again, that's Candido24K_. And you can follow me on Twitter at JFannin73 and on Instagram at IWA Fannin73. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written, so let it be done. Good day.